everybody? This is Algebra 1 with Mr. Peters. I want to tell you guys thank you so much for the support so far. And I'd like to ask you guys to like our video if you found it helpful today. So, our topic for today, guys, is to find slope from a graph part 2. So, they're not going to give us any points on the graph this time. We're going to come up with the points. So when we look at our first graph, you'll see that I've highlighted 3 key points that we could use to find slope. And what I'm going to do is to tell you the exact coordinates and show you why we could use these points. Okay. All right. So we've talked about all 3 points. And if you look, they all line up on an exact X and an exact Y. And that's what we need when it comes to finding slope from a graph. I'm going to be highlighting in yellow other parts of the line where the X and the Y, there is no exact number. When you look at all the grid lines, those dots, if we placed it, right? So if we place this first dot at the top of the line, there is not an exact X and an exact Y. So this is why we cannot use those points for our rise over run, aka the slope. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to go over to our next graph, and I'm going to show you guys how and what points we actually could use. So here goes our first point, a second point, a third point, and a fourth. And what I want you guys to understand is the slope throughout the entire line is the same. So it doesn't matter which dots we use. As long as it's an exact X and an exact Y, we will get the same slope. So let me show you guys what I mean. And let's use blue. All right. So when we look at these first 2 dots in the first quadrant, right? We notice that the run was just 1, right? And then our rise was 3. So if I asked you guys for the slope, you would say m is equal to 3 over 1 or just 3. Now let's say I went down to the bottom 2 dots and I did the same exact thing. I connected these 2 dots, kind of connect them in a triangle, and now I just calculate or count, my rise over run. So when I look, my run was 1 and my rise was 3 again. So please understand, guys, linear equations, straight lines like this, the slope is the same throughout the entire line. It does not matter what 2 points you picked. As long as those 2 points line up on an exact X and an exact Y, we are all good. Okay? All right. So let's just look at one more. And like I said, when we look back at this first graph, guys, that highlighted area, those are points we could not use because there is no exact X and Y. All right. So last practice problem of the day. So if we look here, I think we have a point here, right? I'm starting from the bottom half of the graph in quadrant 3. We have 1 point there. We have a second point on the y-axis. And then we have another point in quadrant number 4. So I'm going to do the same exact thing and connect my first 2 dots. And I'm going to calculate my rise over run. So when I look at my rise, I only went up, down, 1, right? And now for my run, I noticed that I went over 3. So if I ask for the slope, we would say the slope is 1 over 3. But just to make sure, let's try it one more time. So we go down to the third quadrant now, right? And we form our triangle, right? Connecting those 2 dots. And when I calculate my rise over run, I notice that I got the same 1 over 3, okay? So guys, thank you for joining us today. When it comes to finding slope from a graph, part two, you have to make sure that the points you pick has an exact x and an exact y in the coordinate plane. And then after that, just count your rise over run. Make sure you keep it as a fraction, have your rise on top, run on bottom, and you guys should not have any issues when it comes to finding slope from a graph. Thank you guys for joining us so much today. This is Algebra 1 with Mr. Peters.